What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 84. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another episode where we're going to go into a journey. We're going to be talking about a new movie, breaking it down. I'll give you my pros and cons, whether I liked it or didn't like it. But really, we're trying to answer one question. And that question is this film timeless? Can you rewatch this in the future? Enjoy a specific scene so much that you just can't wait to watch it again and get that same feeling? Now, before we jump into this week's episode, do want to call out, guys, make sure to check out some of the last episodes that we've kind of covered. I talked about The Crow in episode number 83. Also talked about Alien Romulus a week before that as well. And so again, if there's any episodes that you guys have missed, feel free to check out Spotify and YouTube. You can find all episodes there as well if you guys just search up Timeless Movie Podcast. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. This week, we're going to be talking about Tim Burton's new movie, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. We're actually talking about the sequel to the original 1988 film, Beetlejuice. A little bit of background. I ended up watching the original Beetlejuice a couple weeks ago just to kind of refresh my memory, kind of get a feeling of what this movie was going to be about. And I got to say that although I didn't think that the original is timeless, it's still a very fun and creative movie. I came out of the movie watching it thinking, man, this is such a original idea and concept, so unique to what we see nowadays with a lot of films that come out in 2024. So it got me really hyped to kind of figure out, okay, well, what is Tim Burton going to do? He's directing this new sequel, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. How is he going to try to play off of the original story? What is the reasoning behind Beetlejuice coming back? And, what are these other characters like Lydia and Delia? What are they going to do in regards to this new film? And so let's go ahead and let's transition into, now that we've actually seen Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, let's talk about my overall thoughts. Okay, I gotta say that after watching Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, my initial thoughts are that this movie was very fun and it is very enjoyable. It definitely has flaws that I will talk about a little bit later, but overall, I had a good time. Ended up watching it with my girlfriend and some friends, and everybody kind of left in a really great mood. And I think that's kind of like the general consensus that I think a lot of folks will get when they watch Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, is that there's just so many jokes that are thrown out there, a lot of funny, hilarious moments. I might be in the camp of recency bias, but I feel like some of the jokes and some of the moments that they were setting up were very hilarious, but I almost feel that they're pretty on par with the original and maybe a little bit funnier. But once again, just throwing it out there, a little bit of the recency bias that might be coming into play on my side. I got to call it out. Star of the show, right off the bat, you guessed it, it's Michael Keaton. His Beetlejuice character is incredible, and he stole the show just like he did in the first movie. He's the title character. It makes sense, but it's just so fun to see a actor kind of play a wild and erratic type of a character who just does whatever they want on screen in this wacky world that they've been able to set up. And his performance, again, it just shines throughout the movie. He is the character that is the funniest. He provides the most hilarious lines. He does the weird facial expressions. It all works, at least for me. That's why I've kind of enjoyed the original Beetlejuice, and I, again, really enjoyed this one as well. But you also have other good performances from Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara, who return to play their original characters of Lydia and Delia Dietz. So they get to interact with Beetlejuice once again, 36 years later. But we also get the introduction of new characters like Astrid, who is played by Jenna Ortega. She's actually the daughter of Lydia. And you again get to see a little bit better perspectives, and they play off these different types of arcs. So really cool stuff that it was, overall what they were trying to provide in regards to this experience of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Once again, you kind of leave the theater in a really good mood. It's funny. There's a lot of just wacky moments. But again, just a fun time as you're watching it. Little short summary about the movie just to kind of get you up to speed. I'm not going to spoil too much until I kind of break down some of my pros and cons, but quick little summary. This film is basically 36 years after the original Beetlejuice in 1988. You have Lydia, the main character and protagonist, who is now a famous ghost talk show host. She tries to kind of connect with other people and kind of go into their homes, almost like a Ghost Adventures type of a spoof. So that was pretty funny. And she ends up interacting with her stepmother, Delia. And Delia is still a famous artist, but they actually get reunited. They hadn't been in contact for a while, and they're actually mourning the death of Lydia's father and Delia's husband, Charles Dietz. He ended up getting eaten by a shark, actually, as he was going to travel. And the reason I laugh is because they really set up that whole image of him passing away in a very funny kind of a light. So they're kind of connected and reunited. And then that's where you also get introduced to Astrid, who is the daughter of Lydia. And again, for her, she lost her grandfather. And so they all kind of get connected. And that's kind of how you get to see the dynamics of all these characters. And eventually, as we kind of go through the story, you see Lydia start kind of seeing images and being almost like she's haunted by Beetlejuice. She's taking drugs to try to kind of suppress some of these kind of images that she's seeing. And then eventually, as the story rolls along, she actually has to enlist the help of Beetlejuice in order to help save her daughter, Astrid, from actually getting stuck in the afterlife. And so all of that kind of things play in, within those specific parts. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but giving you an overall idea as to how the story will play out. Once again, pretty entertaining movie. I laughed in various different types of scenes. A lot of funny actors made some appearances in this film. But again, that had some really cool visuals. It had some really hilarious moments. Again, it does have some flaws. We'll talk about those. But as of today, I could definitely say that I would actually recommend folks check out Beetlejuice in theaters. It's a very fun and entertaining movie just to kind of check out. And again, if you're okay with kind of bringing your kids as well, there is some kind of very crazy visuals that are shown, but that was how the original one was represented as well. So definitely a fun time. All right, I think now is a great opportunity to start kind of going into a little bit of spoilers. So let's kind of dive into some of my pros and cons of Beetlejuice. Let me start off by saying that my favorite part of Beetlejuice is the story arcs that they are setting up within the film. There's two in particular that I really enjoyed. First one was the interactions between Lydia and Astrid. So you have these two characters, mother and daughter. What they end up kind of setting up in the film is they have this kind of disconnect with each other, because what we end up finding out is that Lydia's ex-husband, the father of Astrid, actually passed away. He went to the Amazon, he was a traveler, he did things for the environment, and he actually ended up being lost in the Amazon. And what Astrid feels like, obviously the pain of losing her father, who she felt more connected to, what makes this interaction between Lydia and Astrid even more special is that, Lydia, who again believes in ghosts, you have Astrid, her daughter, who does not believe. And the reason she doesn't believe is because, oh yeah, well, if you do believe in ghosts, well, why can't you see dad? And it was just like this really cool interaction that felt very realistic. And I really enjoyed that type of an arc that they were kind of playing out throughout the film. I know it's kind of a cliche when you have these kind of relationships of a daughter that doesn't trust her mother, and then eventually you kind of see it flip flop and then they come together. No different here, but I just really enjoyed those aspects of, well, what if, Lydia grew up and she can see all these ghosts, she can interact with all these ghosts, but why can't she see her ex-husband? And then you have a daughter who doesn't believe in her. It's like, you're making all this up just to make money. That's all you're doing this for. And so really cool interactions. And then what I love most is that this actually feeds into the second arc that I really appreciated in Beetlejuice, and that's between Astrid and this character named Jeremy. Again, new character. Jeremy is actually played by Arthur Conti, and you see Astrid and Jeremy kind of begin to make a relationship together. They're both young. You have Jeremy, who's just a very nice kid, kind of talking through. He likes all this old stuff, like 90s vinyls, wears a lot of 90s clothes, and you just see the connection start kind of growing between Astrid and Jeremy. And it's a great kind of setup of what they're kind of doing. But what makes it even better is that, spoiler warning again, just giving you a heads up now, Jeremy is actually a ghost. And that was a really good twist that they kind of set up. I kind of saw it coming, but there's actually a separate twist that they end up doing where Jeremy actually is a kind of an antagonist. And that caught me off guard. And so really cool stuff that they were able to set up with these story arcs between, again, Astrid and Lydia, her mother, as well as Astrid and this new boy in Jeremy, who she was starting to fall in love with as well. Really cool stuff. And that would probably be the first pro that I would call out. Moving on to the second pro, I would actually say that this movie, again, like I mentioned in the overall thoughts, it was a really funny movie. Again, most of the funny bits were Beetlejuice. Just the way that Michael Keaton can express and do whatever he wants, or at least that's what it feels like. He's able to just do these random and wacky things, and it just works so well because of just how he looks, how he's presenting this Beetlejuice character. So he had some of the great moments, but to shine a little bit more light on other characters, you also had Willem Dafoe who appeared in this movie. He played a character named Wolf Jackson. He was dead. He was in the afterlife, but he was an actor, and as his actor, he was actually pretending to be a actual detective. And so that was his role in the afterlife, to be a detective, even though he knew that he was just acting the part. But he had some hilarious moments. He just kept, saying, keep it real or stay real, all these different types of stuff. But Willem Dafoe, always a very enjoyable side character that comes out in different films. So definitely loved his parts. And then you have Catherine O'Hara, who's, again, she's just so hilarious. She came out in different types of series. She obviously came out in a lot of various movies, but she is just so good with these types of roles. And she was, again, very funny in the first film. And she's just as funny in this one as well. She has her moments where she actually ends up finding out that she actually passed away. And she just completely goes on a tirade, does not believe it, wants to go to the VIP lounge of the afterlife. It's just a lot of funny stuff. But again, I wanted to highlight that this movie actually had a lot of great setup for jokes and hilarious moments throughout the film. Okay, last but not least, the final pro I have is the visuals. No surprise here, Tim Burton is a master with different types of colors, the designs that he sets up. But what I appreciated the most is that they kept a lot of the different types of props, and everything was practical, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Everything just felt very realistic, and that's why I think what made it connect so well to the original film. Because the original film, again, 1988, visual effects was something that directors could use, but it was, only used when you needed to use it. Everything else should be made practical. And this film felt no different. There's actually one visual that I really enjoyed that was my favorite. And it was actually done by the character of Dolores. Dolores is played by Monica Bellucci. And what her character actually does is that she ends up sucking the soul, not of living characters, but of characters that are in the afterlife. So characters that are already dead. And so what she ends up doing is basically just grabbing them by the neck, and then she just sucks their soul out. But what was so cool about the visual is that the individual's legs would then roll up all the way to their neck. And then when she dumped their body on the floor, all that was left was their clothes and the skin of the individual that she just sucked their soul out of. No bone structure, none of that is left over. It was freaky, but it looked very realistic as well. So got to give a shout out to, again, Tim Burton and the team for just creating a very cool visual within Beetlejuice. All right, moving on to cons. So, like I mentioned, this film, although has a lot of good and funny moments, there are a couple of flaws that kind of take it down a little bit for me. First con, and this is really the biggest one for me, is I just felt like there was just a couple of plot lines that were just kind of interweaving together that just didn't need to really be in the film. It just didn't really add anything. And if you were really to remove either of these characters or their subplots, nothing would really change in the movie. First one is actually Dolores. And this is the unfortunate part because from the trailer and how they set her up at the beginning of the film, Dolores, once again played by Monica Bellucci, she's set up as the antagonist. She's set up as the ex-wife of Beetlejuice. And all she wants is revenge, to basically suck his soul specifically. Now, she's sucking souls of everybody else that she comes into contact with, but her main mission is to basically interact and get to Beetlejuice and just take him out. And then what you end up realizing is that you see her throughout the movie, and then towards like this end of the second act or in the third act, you just completely do not see her at all. And they're moving on to a different kind of a plot line. And then when she comes back, you're thinking, okay, this is when it's about to go down. And then she ends up getting eaten by a sandworm. And then it just all ends like that. And so it's like, it seemed very weird to me that you would have Monica Bellucci play this role where, again, she's set up as the antagonist, and then she's really not the antagonist. She's just like just like a little side character that is looking for Beetlejuice as he can, maybe play off that he's running away from her. But that was really it. And so it didn't really connect with me. This might just be a little nitpick on my side. Maybe for you guys that watched the movie already, maybe it connects with you. But as of this moment, that plot line just didn't make sense. And if you remove it, does not change anything that happens in the film. Second plot line that I would want to call out is really just Rory, who is the love interest of Lydia in this film. Rory is actually played by Justin Theroux. His character just didn't hit with me, just didn't vibe. I know that he was trying to be like this very flamboyant kind of a character, wanting to do anything to just get money from Lydia, but none of his lines really made me laugh. Anytime he was on screen, just it nothing really worked with that character. He was again that one character where if you just take them out of the film, maybe something kind of changes in the story, but I don't know. His character just didn't really make me laugh, wasn't really funny, and I don't think it really added too much and wasn't a vital part of the story. Yes, he's trying to marry Lydia, but once again, it doesn't really add too much and wasn't anything that I was kind of looking forward to. I was watching the movie. So those are again two of the things and the kind of the subplots that, they kind of intertwine with the main story, but didn't really need that. I would have much more appreciated seeing more of the story in the arcs of Lydia and Astrid or Astrid and Jeremy. Just seeing more of those kind of develop and have that be the story rather than seeing these kind of side characters kind of play a bigger part in the film. But that's me. That's kind of a little con that I have. Second one that I wanted to call out was actually wanted to see more of Richard. Richard is actually the father of Astrid and the ex-husband of Lydia. And Richard in this film is played by Santiago Cabrera. And so he ends up coming out at the afterlife and he actually has a helping hand in saving Astrid and Lydia. And so he comes out, he interacts with both of them, but it's a very short scene. I'm not saying that I wanted him to be the hero. That's not what I'm saying. What I would have appreciated is actually seeing more as to why could Lydia not see Richard? Was there a block in her mind or in her ability? And although there is a line that explains that, hey, I don't know how these ghost powers work. That's what Lydia kind of describes. And I get that. I'm not saying that she has to see him, but it would have been cool to see kind of if maybe he was the one that's trying to interact with Lydia, or trying to interact and show Astrid that ghosts are real. And so I would have appreciated his part in the film more because I feel like that would have added much more to the arc of Lydia and Astrid. Even though I did like that arc already, it just would have added much more emotion and a lot more to that story. Again, I know that I'm kind of just creating a different movie altogether, but just wanted to call that out as a slight nitpick. All right, enough with the negative stuff. Let's go ahead and dive in back to some of the stuff that I really enjoyed. Let's go with favorite performance. No question here, it is Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. Even though Catherine O'Hara did a lot of great stuff with Delia, I still got to give it to Michael Keaton. He is just a madman when he plays this character, but it just works for the story of this film. Again, it's just a type of a bio exorcist, I think, and he's just trying to have a business going on, and his one goal is just to try to get back with Lydia and get married with her. And he just again just has all these funny lines. Michael Keaton's facial reactions, the way his voice changes, it goes high, low, as he's playing almost like different types of characters as Beetlejuice, and it's just really fun stuff. This then leads me into my favorite moment of the film, and it's actually again Beetlejuice. At the end of the film, they're at a specific church, and he's just trying all he can to get married to Lydia again after he ended up helping her save her daughter. But the things that he's saying like that, he ends up, talking in Spanish at one point, but it's not actually Michael Keaton's voice. It's like a voiceover of somebody else. He ends up talking to the priest like that, trying to convince him to stay. He ends up having everybody dance around him as he's trying to get married with Lydia. So all these different stuff that ends up happening in the church was just a hilarious scene. He was just on fire in that specific moment, and I really enjoyed that. So my favorite performance, Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, and my favorite moment was Beetlejuice, really anytime, but specifically when he was at that church trying to get married to Lydia. All right, and then final thing is my favorite shot. What's my favorite, moment or still of the movie that I can kind of maybe think of it as a poster for the film? And my favorite moment was actually when Beetlejuice comes out of the model town for the first time after Lydia, because she has no other choice, needs his help to save her daughter. Well, I gotta call his name 3 times. And as soon as he comes out of the model town, you could just see the green and the blue highlighted colors kind of just spraying throughout the actual room and the attic. And then you just see Beetlejuice floating like that, and you could just hear him say, "The juice is loose." And it's just a cool shot. You just see him kind of floating with his classic pinstripe suit. I freaking love that shot, and that is probably my favorite shot of the movie. There's probably a couple other ones, but that's the kind of first one that I think of as well. All right, everybody. Well, those are my pros, those are my cons, favorite moments of the entire movie. Hopefully, that kind of gave you a better picture as to what I thought about it. Again, still entertaining, still fun, still has a couple of flaws, though, that I noticed as I was watching the movie. But this is what's important, though. Is Beetlejuice timeless? That's what we need to really question. And so let's go ahead and dive in. Do I think Beetlejuice is a timeless movie? I do not, unfortunately. So although it is a fun and entertaining movie, although I would recommend folks go out and check it out in theaters. Maybe one of the funniest movies of this year. Again, not the most hilarious. I will say that to me, and this is going to be a personal bias, but to me, the funniest movie that I've experienced this year is Deadpool and Wolverine. But this one again still has its moments, and if you really want to see Michael Keaton just go crazy with this Beetlejuice character, I think you'll have a good time. But for me, the reason that this one isn't timeless is I just feel like the story just didn't really make sense, in regards to what they were trying to explain with these different types of subplots. If the story would have been very simple, like the first one was in 1988, I think I would have enjoyed this a little bit more. I think the fact that we're kind of following these characters like Dolores and Rory, and you're trying to see Rory get married with Lydia, and then for some reason Dolores wants to, get rid of Beetlejuice, but then she ends up getting taken out, and so the story itself and how it plays out, it makes sense, but I just felt like there was just too many things that were trying to kind of complete itself in the story that it just felt like, okay, well, what direction are we really leaning to? If the story would have just been very simple, hey, we have Lydia, we have Astrid. Astrid does not believe in ghosts. She is against her mom being famous as a ghost talk show host. Let's have that be the story. And then let's just see Astrid basically see everything unfold in regards to seeing Beetlejuice for the first time, seeing the afterlife, interacting with Jeremy, who's a ghost. Having it be that way, I think, would have made my experience much more enjoyable. And then add on to the funny stuff that I already liked, it would have gotten a little bit closer to maybe being timeless. But once again, for me, in my personal opinion, some of these story elements just kind of drop this one down a little bit. Still a fun watch, but I don't plan on rewatching Beetlejuice in the future. Those are my opinions, though. Guys, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Have you had a chance to check out Beetlejuice? If you have, let me know down below in the comments. What did you think about the film? Did you enjoy it? Do you think it's actually better than the first one? Do you think the first and the second are both timeless or one's timeless? Let me know down below. Definitely would want to interact with you guys and talk more about Beetlejuice. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for those that stayed all the way through and listened to my overall breakdown of Beetlejuice. My name is Victor Vasquez. This is episode number 84 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we try to cover a new film that comes out in theaters and try to decide, is it timeless after one viewing? All right, everybody. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys later.